Good Monday morning, everyone. Hope everyone had a wonderful weekend. And today I've got a lot going on today, so I'm getting started early this morning and want to give you another section on the things that you could have on hand to not only help you survive a major situation like Helene and also maybe like that situation in Texas, but to help you maybe thrive during those times. And so the next section that I want to talk to you about is something that I think could be very, very important, especially in a long-term situation. So this section is on personal hygiene and cleaning products. And I want to say this up front. I am definitely not going to cover everything that you would need on these topics. Not these are the ones that I've done previously, but I'm giving you these categories and some of the items on the topics to help you think about what else might I want or need during those situations. Every person is going to be different. This is not a one size fits all. And so the first section here is personal hygiene, and the obvious one on that is going to be soap. And after that, soap's good, but I still want a little bit of deodorant through the day too. Of course, during the pandemic, there was the toilet paper shortage. Everybody's going to want that. And so that, and then hand sanitizer, toothpaste and dental floss. Feminine hygiene products, combs, wipes. And, wipes could be a critical one if you have children, especially if you have babies or toddlers. You might want a portable outdoor shower, a portable toilet. And in this section, I'm going to say this. Well, this would probably cover this or the next section. I think I have this in the next section. For cleaning products, a portable toilet, or you might be able to just use the commode in your house, but you're going to want plenty of water in order to flush that commode. So in that section, you're also going to need dish soap, and I'm not talking about dishwasher pods. I'm talking about something that you can physically wash dishes with. And then wipes like Clorox wipes. And then, of course, bathroom cleaner, laundry cleaner, laundry detergent, liquid laundry detergent, or some kind of detergent that you can use with a bucket of water or, on a creek bank or something. And then garbage bags. Garbage bags will be critical during a situation like this because you think about it, if you're in a situation where you cannot use your bathroom, then you're going to have garbage bags there. And if you're using, like instead of using your not pots and pans, you'd be using cast iron and you'd have to wash them unless you've got a way to cook inside. But unless you're using your everyday dishes and washing them at every meal, which would not be very smart in a situation like this because, unless you're able to get water out of your well, you would be using up your water, which is so critical during this time. So, you're going to want to have some paper plates or some styrofoam plates and cups and bowls and things like that on hand, plus some plastic spoons and forks. But you're still going to have some liquid dish soap because you're going to want to clean your cooking utensils and pots and pans, whatever you're using. So that is personal hygiene and cleaning product. Okay, so the next section on this would be communications. And I know that during the Helene, so many people lost their cell service. If they had landline phones, those were obviously not going to work for a long time. And so a satellite phone might be something you'd want to consider, or ham radio or CB radio, something like that. And then you're going to also want to know what is going on in the outside world. And so a hand crank radio, or, even if you don't have a hand crank radio, if you've got a generator where you could plug a radio in, or a battery powered radio, so that you can get news to know what is happening around you, what's going on and how far is this destruction, and is help on the way, things like that. And so a radio will be critical during this kind of a situation. And another thing you might want to consider, to use between, on your property, between neighbors, maybe you've got family that live nearby, and depending on how far away they are, you might want walkie-talkies. There are various different kinds of radios, of walkie-talkies, and of course the ham radios, CB radios, that reach various different distances. So make sure that you give some consideration to how you'll communicate with your family, your neighbors, friends, whoever, during a situation like this. Okay, so then the next section that I want to cover with you is going to be tools. During this kind of a situation, I know one of the biggest things that people needed as far as tools were concerned in our area was a chainsaw. Debris and trees came down and blocked roads, and there was just a critical need for chainsaws. And if you're going to have chainsaws, make sure you've got extra chains, extra bars, chainsaw fuel, and then the tools and files to fix those with. Also, for a long-term situation, and maybe even for some of the short-term situations, you're going to need hammers and nails, screwdrivers and screws, saw, shovels. Shovels will be critical during that time. Crowbars could become very critical during that time. Hatchets and axes. And then in your pocket, make sure you've got a multi-tool. And this is something that we gave away, probably a couple thousand military can openers. There were so many people that lost their homes, and the food, people brought in food, and they brought in lots of canned food, but if you don't have a can opener, what good's it going to do you? So the little military can openers, I forgot now what they're called. It's a letters and numbers. I can't remember. Maybe I'll find that and put it in the comments. But a military can opener was something that we gave away so many of those. And then of course you'll want knives, many different kinds of knives. And then of course your personal protection. And that personal protection could mean a lot of different things. And then other things that, this could be tools, but it also could just be things that, that will benefit with those tools would be tarps. I mean, there's so many different uses for tarps. I've seen, videos of people using a tarp to, let it get wet at night with the dew. If it's a clean tarp, it's going to collect the dew and give you a little bit of water. A tarp can be a protection against the wind, the rain, a shelter. A covering if you've lost the roof from your house or, lost part of it. Zip ties, rope, and paracord. They're way too many needs, or too many ways that you would need rope and paracord to even start to begin to list. But thinking back to Helene, when the people were dealing with downed trees, and of course sometimes you would have a tree down and then another one was hanging on top of it and stuff like that, to have a long rope to be able to tie off something like that to keep it from rolling, or to keep it from, bucking back once you're sawing it, could save somebody's life. So, and then another thing that I mentioned this in the other section, was the little buddy heaters and gas, and then also the wood. Even if you don't have a fireplace or a wood stove in your home, stack some wood up, because outside you may have to cook outside. You may have to have a fire for warmth outside. And so if you've already got some wood stacked up, and, have it cut and split and covered so that it's going to stay dry, and so that it'll be dry for, dried out so that it's ready to use, that could be life-saving. And then sleeping bags. I mean, a sleeping bag in a situation like that where you're stuck outside, with no shelter, could be a life-saving situation. And then also, of course, a small tent would be a great thing to have on hand. And then, of course, cast iron cookware, and some kind of an outdoor cook stove of some sort, a grill, a propane burner, something like that. So hopefully that'll give you some ideas on some things in tools and things like that that you're going to need. And then let's see, I think the next thing that I'm going to cover is going to be skills. I'm telling you what, there are so many different skills that if we're in a bad situation, grid down, whatever it might be, those people in North Carolina during Helene, that was a grid down scenario. It wasn't the power grid, all over that area. It wasn't the whole power grid that went down. But I guarantee you, if you ask those people, was that a grid down scenario, they're going to tell you absolutely yes. So the skills that you're going to need, and there's no way I'm going to cover all of these, but cooking, canning, baking, dehydrating. Is that what this channel's about? And then there are some other channels. These are things that I do as well: sewing, quilting, crocheting, gardening, and then you get into things like hunting, fishing, foraging, self-protection, whether you take a gun carry permit class, or, if you just get out in your yard and learn how to use all the different tools, the gun, the knife, lots of things for self-protection there. And then woodworking, be that, using a knife to whittle out something, or using a saw to create something. But, there's all kinds of woodworking areas that you could learn skills. Mechanical skills, electrical, plumbing, animal husbandry. I know lots and lots and lots of channels here on YouTube teach animal husbandry. Patara over at Appalachia's Homestead is all over that with her chickens and turkeys and her cows and goats, and I think she's got all kinds of animals. And then first aid. Learn some basic first aid. If you've never taken the first aid classes through the Red Cross, go take that class. You may save somebody's life. And then learn how to use a chainsaw and learn how to do chainsaw maintenance. And then this one could be very critical, and this is learning how to cook using cast iron over an open fire. That is an area where our ancestors knew how to do that stuff. But nowadays, unless you cook on a gas stove, and even then, that's not going to be like cooking over an open flame, because you can adjust a gas stove, but you cannot adjust, easily at least, you cannot adjust an open flame. You can do it a little bit based on how much wood you have burning under your pot, but that may be something we'll go into a little bit more detailed down the road. But then the next section that I want to talk to you about is fire safety, and this is important whether you're in a grid down situation or not. And this is to have a fire extinguisher, maybe multiple fire extinguishers handy, a fire blanket. And then this is something that I found on Amazon maybe a year or so ago. And I had bought fire extinguishers and had those in my house. And then I got to looking at them one day and they were not working. They were brand new, had never been used, but for whatever reason, they were no longer, viable. And so, but anyway, I was researching one day and I found aerosol fire extinguishers on Amazon. And so I bought a bunch of those. I've got one under my kitchen sink and one in the bathroom under the sink. And I gave my kids some to put in their kitchens and stuff. Have those around. I have one out in my pantry. And so that's something else that would be a very great thing to have on hand in a situation like this. So I'm going to end it right there today. And I think tomorrow will probably be the last day of this series. And but I've got to get in the kitchen. I've got pasta sauce. Actually, I've got Roma sauce that I canned a couple years ago. I opened the jars and poured them into a big pan and put them in my oven this morning. And so I'm going to be showing you later how to make pasta sauce 2 different ways. And then I've also got 3 boxes of Roma tomatoes that I've got to put through the juicer today. And I've got some cucumbers I've got to work up today. So, going to be a busy day. I'll do some videoing throughout the day today. And so over the next couple of days, those will be coming up. And so until the next time, God bless you.